r/ask Reddit. What was the dumbest rule your school enforced? In grade 8, we were banned from standing in circles at recess because of potential scandalous activity going on in the middle. We stood in squares instead. Be there and be square. I love you, man. We couldn't wear winter clothing, jackets, hats, gloves, in class because they were gang symbols. This was a small farm town in Wisconsin. Besides obviously having no gangs, it was ducking cold, even indoors, in the winter, but clearly wearing warm clothing is something only gangs do. Mitten Clan ain't nothing to duck with. Glove Gang. I'm a cheerleader, and for school spirit week I wore the uniform they gave me. I got dress coded. That is the ultimate high school moment. Ultimate life moment TBH. Our school banned hugging because it was erotic, as you can imagine. The boys at school started giving each other very sensual high fives for the rest of the year. There's no group that takes homoeroticism more seriously than late middle high school boys. Yes, there is. The military. Can't wear two men matching shirts because you could be a gang. This was in regards to a kid with cancer wanting to make a bunch of shirts. My high school was in Butt Duck, Nebraska. American schools seem to be obsessed with the idea of gangs. They really are. My public school in the 90s tried to make us wear private school style uniforms. Avoiding gang colors was big argument for this. This was an affluent school in the suburbs. Schools will latch onto any perceived potential transgression to enforce authoritarian rules, which is how you end up with teen girls carrying ibuprofen for period cramps being treated like heroin traffickers. No backpacks to class, but purses were allowed. Girls started carrying around purses big enough to be considered a backpack. Guys got pissed, started carrying purses too. LMAO. Also, I'd just bring my books in a microwave. Or you could go the tall girl way and carry around a milk crate. Middle school had banned salt and pepper from being used in the cafeteria. Claimed it was too unhealthy. Still sold Mountain Dew in the vending machines. School I used to teach at had similar rules. Some bullshit about federal nutrition standards or something. We'd just keep them in the teacher's lounge along with hot sauces and chamoy and a few other condiments and leave them on our desks. As a student, I brought my own hot sauce to school, right next to my pot. In my freshman year of high school we had a terrible vandalism problem. The bathrooms would be broken in various ways almost constantly. In a stroke of pure genius, the staff decided that any bathroom that was vandalized would be closed for the week on first offense, the quarter for second, and permanently on the third offense. They took back the rule after closing every bathroom on day 1. Holy shit, recently at my high school someone stole a ducking urinal. I have no clue how someone manages to do that. That takes some Ocean's 11 level planning right there. In 6th grade they switched out all student chairs for large rubber stability balls. There was a strict no bouncing rule. It was a disaster. Edit. This was in Arizona in the late 90s for those asking. The idea was to promote better posture. This wouldn't work with any age group, let alone 6th graders. Actually, we have those in one classroom in HS, only because the teacher who has classes there is a bit nuts. At first everyone was bouncing on them, but we got bored of it after some time. These bouncy balls are supposedly good for your back and I love them, but it would be an absolute nightmare in primary school. Prom was a mandatory lockdown for the night in order to avoid students going to parties after prom. Prom was held at various house parties across town instead. I hated when schools shove their noses into everyone else's business. My school would do that all the time. You get caught with weed or alcohol or even something less bad outside of school on your own time, the school would hear about it and you got punished at school. Shoes are to be worn as the manufacturer intended. I have no clue who was wearing their shoes incorrectly or how, but this line, verbatim, was repeated to us over the morning announcements when there were perceived infractions at various points throughout the year. Maybe people were drawing on their shoes? I did that, and I feel like that's the point of having cons. They decided everything bad happened in the last 5 minutes of lunch, so it got 5 minutes shorter each year. Any group more than 5 had to be up to no good, so no groups over 5. Edit. This was not some big city, public school for troubled kids. It was a tiny Catholic school in a tiny farming town. The worst offense by a student of the whole time I was there was some kid walking across the street to get a soda from a store. This is just 2 groups of 3. School, ban them. It's clearly a gang war now. If you were involved in a fight, you got suspended. Well, it sounds reasonable. Context didn't matter. I got suspended once, not for throwing a single punch, kick, whatever. I got suspended because someone knocked the books out of my hand, and when I reached down to grab them they punched me in the face. I got suspended for walking down the hallway and unprovoked getting punched in the face. Duck Brandon Valley Middle School. My buddy got suspended for something similar. His Marine Corps MP mother told him in no uncertain terms that if anyone tried that shit again, earn that suspension. Ducking, surprise surprise. The dude tried that again and he went ham on that kid. Busted nose, torn ear, black and blue for weeks. The fallout was exactly the same as not fighting back at all, except my buddy got a pat on the back from his mom and a new video game. Tell you what, no one tried that with him again. If it wasn't zero tolerance then it wouldn't be a problem. Someone gives you some physical trouble and they get punished. Easy peasy. They've got cameras everywhere. Surely it would be pretty easy to see. Isn't it ironic that zero tolerance policies actually encourage violence? You couldn't wear any kind of head items that were gang colors, red or blue, semicolon. This included hairbands, scrunchies, beads in your hair, ribbons, anything. I got in trouble for wearing a blue hairband with white polka dots. Don't joke about the polka dot cartel. My high school mascot was Daniel Boone holding a musket. A kid wore a Guns N' Roses shirt to school and was told he had to change shirts because of the pistols on the shirt. He pointed out the hypocrisy of the school mascot and they changed everything. The mascot was switched to holding a flagpole instead. Every instance of the mascot was changed from the multiple signs outside and around the school to the giant picture in the middle of our basketball stadium. Holden, you're a ducking legend for this. Hey, at least this shows a consistent internal logic and lack of hypocrisy on the part of school admin. Although definitely a lack of self-awareness too. I mean, at least they fixed their hypocrisy when it was pointed out to them. Suspension as a punishment for skipping school. Don't want to come to school? Well, now you can't. Until next week. Edit. And no tank tops in a desert climate. Because shoulders are too sexy for school. Grade 12, I got suspended 3 days out of school for skipping school. Parents didn't even have to call in for me. It was great. They banned hats because hats can be used to signify gang colors. The only major crime group in our area was the Hells Angels, and they certainly weren't having people wear hats for children to signify their allegiance. It was so bad a few years after I graduated I came back to volunteer as a chaperone for a school trip as a favor for my favorite teacher. The principal saw me wearing a beanie from across school. He literally sprinted half a mile to chase me down and tell me to take off the hat. When I told him I wasn't a student and didn't have follow the dress code, he said either take off the hat, leave, or he'd call the cops. It wasn't the actual day of the trip. Just had to show up to get the itinerary and stuff, so I just said, "Duck you, I'm out, idiots." Oblivion guards be like. They banned grey cows because they can be used to signify guild colors. The only major crime group in our area was the Dark Brotherhood, and they certainly weren't having people wear hats for children to signify their allegiance. It was so bad a few years after I became the hero of Kvatch I came back to volunteer as a mercenary for a quest as a favor for my favorite Argonian. The captain of the guard saw me wearing a cowl from across city. He literally sprinted half a mile to chase me down and tell me to take off the hat. When I told him I wasn't a citizen and didn't have follow the dress code, he said either take off the hat, leave, or he'd call the city guard. It wasn't the actual day of the quest. Just had to show up to get the itinerary and stuff, so I just said, "Duck you, I'm out, Enwa." I loved telling this one. We had percentage grades, and if you earned 100% in a class for the semester you would be dinged down to 99%. Because only God is perfect. As far as I know, this was not an official rule, and I only know of it happening one time. To the girl who eventually became our valedictorian. But that was the reasoning she was given. It was a Catholic girls' high school and there were a lot of other weird, strictly enforced rules, especially around the uniform. But the only God is perfect rule will always take the cake for me. Did they just cut the percentage of a single person? Yep, it was a really academically rigorous school, and she's the only person I ever heard of it happening to, which is why I doubt it was an official rule, open bracket, though it was openly stated by a teacher as an explanation for her markdown, so not a school rumor mill situation either, quirky and weirdo. You got in trouble if you wore just a Hanes white t-shirt after school because you were in your underwear. Might as well just wear your literal underwear to make a statement. Or just strip entirely. My high school band t-shirts that had the cover of Rush's album Signals, an album popular at the time, which features an image of a dog sniffing a fire hydrant. They considered it scatological because the dog was about to pee on it. This struck the entire student body as extremely stupid, and roughly 1/2 of the student body picked a day to wear the t-shirt. We won. Imagine how terrible it would be if kids found out that dogs pee. We weren't allowed to have cough drops in our elementary because the school considered them drugs. God help you if you had a headache. Oh, you need an aspirin? Well, you need to eat more fiber, because that's tough shit. This is still a thing. My daughter is lactose intolerant and she's not allowed to take Lactaid with lunch because it's a drug. No fist bumps. The reason for this is that kids might accidentally punch the other person in the face. Edit. The school I went to was in a pretty rough area, so there were a lot of incidents where kids ended up getting into fights. Took all the doors off the men's room bathroom stalls because of vandalism for 2 months. Same at my school, but for all 4 years, we had no TP or mirrors either. No TP? What did you use then? We were all given these ugly planners at the beginning of the school year, with a few pages at the back filled with hall passes. If you didn't have your planner, or if all your boxes were filled, you weren't allowed to go to the bathroom. And no, you couldn't buy a new planner, or borrow one from your friend. The only excuse you had was if you had a doctor's note, but no doctor is going to give a note for an upset stomach caused by the school lunch. Oh wow, I totally forgot about this until you said this. We had those too. Some teachers gave extra credits to kids who never used any of their hall passes. I went to a school that had block scheduling, so our classes were 2 hours long. Pretty messed up that we were incentivized to never use the bathroom. Now that I think back on that. God, my middle school did too. You had a page of hall passes and I think you had like 6 for a quarter. You could use them to go to your bathroom or your locker if you forgot your homework or something. If you didn't use them you got extra credit. I think I used one once the whole time I was in middle school because I had forgotten my homework in my locker. I later developed Crohn's disease around age 17 and I am terrified to think what that would have been like in middle school pre-diagnosis and thus pre-doctor's note. No jackets. They think we may hide things like phones or bombs there. I hope you grew up in Hawaii. Thanks for the upvotes and awards, unknown humans. We had to wear belts. Someone snitched that people weren't wearing belts under their sweaters, and they actually checked and a bunch of people got detentions. Stupid. We had belt raids at my school where the dean would burst into classes, completely interrupting any education, to check that everyone was wearing a belt. We got to understand him though. How could you possibly learn anything without a belt on to retain the information? Attended all girls high school. You had to bring a male date to dances or not attend at all. No going solo or with your girlfriends. So backwards. Those sound like very empty dances. Sounds like a plot to get no one to show up so the school can just cancel dances entirely and not spend the money. All the kids, 6th or 7th grade, started putting pink laces in their shoes. Don't know why, but the school officials banned colored laces saying pink is a gang color. Girls must wear skirts even in the cold back rain. I never got the skirt thing. Like, why? Who came up with the idea that girls should wear skirts? The cynic in me says that perverts want easy access, but that can't really be it, right? Pants cover more skin. Put an extra layer over the girly parts, and make it easier to move around without having to worry about exposing yourself. So, what is the problem with girls wearing pants? No fitted clothes for girls. This was high school. If the swell of your breasts or butt were visible due to tight fabric, you had to go home. This wasn't a religious school. This was just a school run by dumb pieces of shit. I'm assuming bustier and curvier girls get a lot of trouble? I'm high school, my boobs grew really quick over school holidays. So I went back to school and my dress didn't fit properly and the shirt I wore under it was visible because I couldn't do up the first 2 buttons. I got a new dress within the first week, but I had several teachers pointed out in front of my classmates that I was irresponsible for having boobs too large to fit my old school dress. My freshman dorm at a religious college had a list of rules that filled a legal-sized sheet of paper. It included being in your room for forced study time every night, keeping your towel straight on the towel rack, and making your bed by 9 AM every day, including weekends. So if you wanted to sleep in on Saturday morning, you were supposed to get up, make your bed, and then go back to sleep in top of the bed. Ah yes, the freedom of adulthood. Don't spend it all in one place, lol. Involved in a fight. Same punishment regardless of fault, and this led to more dangerous fights due to everyone just going for it. Saw people use chairs, cricket bats and anything just to hand. Getting expelled from the school was really hard as it was the last chance school in the area, and after that it was a special reform school. My high school had half the bathrooms closed off at all times because they feared the students would smoke. They would just smoke in the available stalls then, or somewhere else, lol. Yes, and some of these teachers would get a real power trip and berate a student they caught in one of these bathrooms, me included. This was 20 years ago, but seriously dude, GFYO. A girl and a boy couldn't sit together. The school employed disciplinarians to roam around the school and monitor this activity. If found, you'll get a reprimand. If found repeating the offense, you get sent to the principal office, and if continuing, then eventually escalated to the parents etc. LOL. My parents would have just laughed if my school called to tell them I sat next to a girl. That was the ridiculousness of the whole thing. The parents didn't give a hoot, except for a handful who thought it was a great idea. But kids hung out after school hours, outside and on weekends. They dated whoever they wanted and pretended they were in a forbidden relationship while at school. It was like trying to catch water through a sieve. We can't use black pens. Like why? No more than 5 friends could hang out together during lunch. Our HS principal was trying to crack down on gangs, but I never saw a single teacher enforce the rule. My school was like this. If too many people happened to be wearing the same color on the same day, administration would follow them around. My buddies and I are a bunch of Mormon guys from Utah. Would have been a pretty lame gang. Imagine all of you dressing in the same color and then asking whoever's following you about Jesus lol, just to duck with them. No backpacks in the halls. Oh yeah, because carrying all of our books between classes was a great ducking idea. Plus hardly any time between classes to exchange books meant carrying multiple classes things at once. Edit. Looks like this is the norm for quite a few people and school districts. Doesn't make the rule any less stupid, but to be fair, it depends on your school. My middle school was 8 or so classes a day with 3 minutes between classes in a large school where classes could be far away from your locker. My high school was 4 classes and a much smaller building. But my friend's high school was similar to my middle school situation. My school was the same. No backpacks. Period. I heard it was enforced because bombs could be hidden there, but Jesus, for real? No playing on the mini golf course. Due to the school having mineral rights on oil land in the mid-70s, our school system had huge amounts of money. One thing they did was get 9 concrete animals on the playground for miniature golf. These looked like a lot of fun to play on for kids. And they were concrete, so they were indestructible. They took up 1/3 of the absolute center of the playground. We could not touch them, play on them or get anywhere near them. In pay, we broke out the putters once in all of grade school. A few years later they had the high school seniors take them out with sledgehammers. My school banned backpacks at one point. To protest, boys just didn't bring anything with them to class and girls brought really big purses. One of the funnier things that happened because of it was an interaction between my friend and a teacher. Where's your book? Friend, in my backpack. Teacher, and where is that? Friend, at home. The $200 blazer was compulsory and we got detention every single day until we got it. No rubbing linseed oil into the school cormorant. This is the quality word salad I need right now. No bits. School me. Couldn't even if I tried. I'm 27 and I still can't grow a beard. Maybe next year. Sigh. If we spoke our native language instead of English, we had to pay a fine of about 30 to 40 cents. What a flying duck. What school did you go to, Karen High? Zero tolerance to bullying. The faculty were the worst ones. Too many double standards. They had no problem enforcing it when a student was doing the bullying but did absolutely nothing to punish the teachers when they did it. My favorite. Teach kids to be afraid to defend themselves because of looming authority. They banned dodgeball. Oh yeah, me too. They banned soccer once. No hats. Period. Unless you were devoutly Jewish or Muslim or some other religion that required it. No torn pants, shirts or other articles of clothing. Open bracket. Not enforced at all. They still have it today. No long jackets for boys. It was just fine for girls. School added thumbprint scanners at gates of school which counted as registration. Needless to say, I would just walk to school, scan my thumb and walk back home with them none the wiser. It was a great few months until they noticed. We weren't allowed to wear plain red, blue, yellow, or white tees because of the white tee song and thought there was t-shirt gangs. A second one was named after my crew. We weren't allowed to have any comic or anime artwork during school hours and students couldn't exchange money with each other unless the teacher approved. Girls can't show your shoulders or above the fingertips with your hands straight against your legs. Boys could wear tank tops with holes in them and basketball shorts. Girls were sent home if their damn shirt had a neck hole too big. School I went to once had a policy against any drinks that weren't water. Granted, I love me some water, but it sucks not to be able to have a nice Gatorade or something in school once in a while. Open bracket. Well, until I just bought a metal water bottle and circumvented that rule pretty quickly. One way always. Like, just let me get to my class, who gives a shit. A type of candy because people would pretend to smoke it. Don't know if it's dumb or funny though. Edit. It was Smarties. We weren't allowed to play tag football at lunch, only frisbee. When I asked the principal what the difference was, he responded with a sarcastic tone. A football is round and a frisbee is a flat disc. He left the school later that year, went to another school, and a few years later was brought up on charges for failing to report the abuse of a student by a teacher. Zero tolerance policy. Most zero tolerance policies for anything in a school don't work because the teachers that enforce the hell out of them don't understand the situation. Then when you try to explain, you get interrupted before you say your first syllable. In elementary school, only grade 5 or 6 to grade 8 in the lunchroom. We would have a lunch monitor stand at one end of the cafeteria watching all of us eat, and none of us were allowed to get up. The only reason we could stand up was to go to the washroom, and we would have to raise our hand to be allowed to stand. When the lunch recess bell was about to ring, we would have to be dismissed table by table to throw out our garbage and before we headed out. Conservative Christian College. A group of us played Age of Empires one weekend. They didn't like it and called a meeting. Everyone involved got misdemeanors on their records. There was nothing in the handbook about it being against the rules. The only person that didn't get any punishment was the son of the president, even though he was just as involved as the rest of us. Was quite interesting, explaining the write-up on my record when I transferred. You got a misdemeanor for what? Edit. They made it a rule after the fact and did this several other times with things such as nail polish or radio control helicopters. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.